Trading Capital's exclusive analysis. In today's video, we're discussing natural gas and some couple correlations as to why we might be close to a bottom. So first things first, nat gas hit my downside target today. My members were able to add at the lows today, and you can see nat gas is actually bouncing slightly in the futures, up about 0.7%. We've completed a measured move. This high to this low and this high to the list low is pretty much the identical move to the downside, roughly shaving off $1.45 in price action. This was a 39.5 or 39.75% decline. This one's been a decline of roughly about 46%. Not only do you have a measured move down in a very, very symmetrical pattern, you have this beautiful parallel channel, high pivot, perfect low pivot, low pivot. Markets love to bust through these channels. I talked about it in yesterday's video where they kind of do a fake breakdown through this channel, and that is the point to buy. And look, we're starting to catch a little bit of buyer. It's not out of the woodwork yet, but I do think at least a minimum retrace bounce is going to occur. I think we're going to get a bounce basically back to this $2.06 level at the minimum. And then I do even think a retrace back to this upsloping trend line. If you look on this upsloping trend line, that's your COVID low in nat gas. Through these pivots, through this pivot, that's probably where nat gas starts to rebounce to, and then we'll have to wait for the next pattern. If it can get a weekly close above this trend line, then you're looking at potentially maybe a little bit of a local bottom in nat gas, and you could even push up in the long term to about $354. But let's just start by trying to get a bounce off of this low. Now, let me be clear. Can natural gas go lower on more panic and more fear and more over-levered traders and investors? Absolutely. It's a commodity. It can. We do have inventories coming up as well that you have to put on your radar if you're involved in this space. A couple of the things I want to show you a comparison of. Today we had a really big down day in the market. Even the Dow Jones Transport, take a look at that, the DJI, saw a massive whopping 1.35% decline to the downside. What's interesting is I've given this monthly channel that the Dow has dropped in, and this is kind of a little bit of a correlation to what nat gas is doing and the Dow. But look at the Dow. Dow is hitting this resistance trend line, going all the way back to 1987 pivot, as well as this pivot high here in 2021, November of 2021. Not only are you hitting that, but you have this beautiful symmetrical channel. All of these pivots here in the the late 90s. Then you hit a low here in the GFC financial crisis. Then you tried breaking above it off of these COVID high stimulus money, and now you're retesting it here again and starting to find some rejection. The importance of showing you this Dow chart and what I'm going to show you on the nat gas futures chart. If we look at the nat gas futures chart, I think we're seeing a top in the Dow components, and that's likely going to signify a near-term bottom. And just take a look at the Dow component in the orange here. So here you can see the Dow is starting to roll over. There's a few other periods in history where if we scroll back enough, I'm actually going to go to the weekly chart, we can actually see the Dow had some pretty ferocious declines on a couple occasions here. COVID really doesn't matter, but here you had a top in the Dow and it started to pull off. Here you had a top in the Dow. Notice these were correlated with big moves in natural gas to the high side. So basically I had a big move here in nat gas that pushed the Dow components lower. And then here you also had another little bit of a bottom in nat gas and ended up spiking pretty substantially over the next several weeks. And that forced the Dow to also roll over. So are we now in a scenario where maybe the Dow is starting to roll over and it's going to correlate with potentially some more expensive prices? You also had that same scenario here in nat gas all the way back in 2007 where nat gas put in a little bit of a local bottom here around this $5.41 mark. And then you can see the Dow hit a little bit of this double top and started rolling over as nat gas was exploding higher. So if we get an environment where nat gas does start to fly to the high side, that could put pressure on the Dow, and you could see people moving for some sort of a commodity that's definitely backed by the use of society. So on that note, I think that natural gas is at a really healthy spot. We started accumulating sub $195 via the UNG. If basically you look at my average on the UNG, my members have really started a core position. We're prepared to take this 8% of our portfolio. Right now we only have 3% of our portfolio, but with today's ad, we're only basically about 4% down on the position. And I still think this will at least bounce about 20%. Now, there's always a scenario UNG can flush to 1435. I would welcome that with open arms because that is a gift of a buying opportunity in my opinion. And it's a matter of just staying solvent with this natural gas trade and not over leveraging yourself with these double, triple ETFs, because that's when the market will sniff out over leveraged traders. And I know with 100% certainty, based off of some comments, DMs, there's people over levered in this trade 1000%. On that note, take care, everybody. We'll see you on the charts a little bit later.